Welcome to Attention Retention with Jackie McManus, your source for the latest trends in transportation recruitment and retention.
And now, back to the Tim Ridley Show.
All about driver interest, issues, recruiting, and retention with Jackie McManus on Retention Attention. This is Tim Ridley on Sirius XM. Jackie, good morning to you.
Tim, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Did you have a nice Labor Day weekend?
Yeah, I did. I had a nice, relaxing Labor Day weekend. How about yours?
It was great. I'm currently in wedding season right now. So we just had our third wedding this summer. But I think a lot of the weddings got postponed, obviously, during COVID. So they're all this past summer. So it was a great, fun weekend for sure with friends.
Well, that's great. We have a family friend. She, what do you call it? A wedding planner. I was going to say a wedding decorator, but she's a wedding planner. And that's what she said, that it's been pretty busy as makeup time, I guess, because like you said, COVID and the lockdown, now people are coming out and fulfilling their wedding dreams, of having a nice wedding and so forth. So, so you've been pretty busy then, haven't you?
I've been busy for sure. I think I got wedding goer. I'm going to officially give myself the title wedding goer of the year soon. So, no, it's all fun. It's all good things. It was nice to have a long weekend for sure.
Well, that's great. Well, we talk about the issues with recruiting and retention, more on the retention part of the deal. So have you heard anything, or what have you heard? I guess I should ask you this way. What have you heard, or what's on the horizons for the companies that you work with in terms of retention?
Well, you know what, Tim? September is always a really fun month for all of our clients because September marks Driver Appreciation Week, but majority of our clients actually turn it into the whole month. So officially kicked off, this past Friday or Saturday with Driver Appreciation Month. I'm seeing most clients do it at this point. And the carriers that actually have the highest retention don't just take the month of September. They appreciate the drivers year round. You'll see more of the posts around Driver Appreciation Month, specifically for September, but a lot of the clients that we work for, Tim, it's all year round, and they're celebrating their drivers, which I think is a beautiful thing. So I want to hear from drivers. It's always so helpful when I'm on the radio and hear what's keeping them at their current company. What we do is I take this information, I give it back to carriers that we work with to give them suggestions to implement into their current workforce. So it's always so helpful when I hear from drivers that call in and tell me, the question is, what keeps you at your current carrier?
It's so heartwarming every time I hear you say that companies are wanting to know and wanting feedback from you, from our drivers, on what they can do to better themselves in terms of appreciating the drivers and keeping the drivers. And as you and I often say, Jackie, that there was a time when this was not even a thing. It was not even a thing in terms of retention. Yeah. It was a thing of recruiting, but retaining them, that was no big deal at all. That was no issue. The driver would would go out the back door. They would bring other drivers in the front door. It was no thing. So it just touches me that companies have finally realized the importance of treating drivers right and trying to hold on to drivers, because that's going to build more of a solid company as well.
Absolutely. And that's what the primary comes down to. When I joined the business, the industry, maybe almost 20 years ago at this point, which I can't believe, to tell you the truth, but I joined the industry 20 years ago. It was such a push on just how many, kind of butts and seats can companies get. And now, and I think really COVID actually, some silver linings of COVID is folks really realize they had to figure out ways to adopt forms of technology. But with adopted forms of technology is also how do they keep their current workforce happy and want to stay with them? One of my clients I was just speaking with recently, and they're a newer client of KJ Media, they actually have a really great program for recruiters that that don't come from the industry. So they typically try to recruit in drivers that want a office position, which I think is always fantastic because they're showing career growth in their company. And a lot of times these recruiters end up moving up the ladder, if you will. But recently what they told me is that if they are going to be recruiting new recruiters into their company, that recruiter is actually going to hold their CDL. So they're going to pay for them to get their CDL and actually go on the road for about a couple of months there to understand what it's like to actually physically be a truck driver. Once they go through their training process, they'll then prime them to be an in-office staff member. But what they have seen is that the hire rates have radically jumped, and not only the hire rates, but the retention rate, because the recruiters know exactly what it's like to be a driver and not just speculating, if you will, based on the information that they, have from a black and white piece of paper. And it's a big investment for the company for sure. But once they started incorporating this over the last 2 to 3 years, I want to say, they had their retention rate their turnover rate go from 70%, now it's down to 40%. And it's because the recruiters understand what the driver is going through, and they're honest with the drivers. And they'll say, hey, listen, it's a flatbed company. We all know flatbed isn't easy by any means. It's a lot of labor. But they will tell the drivers, this is what to expect. If it's not a good fit for them, they also will refer them to other companies that will be a better fit for them. That driver might come back, but what they're finding is they're really trying to get that personality test matching to make sure that the drivers had a good understanding of what they're getting into before they even join the company. And it starts with a conversation with the recruiters within that first 5 minutes that goes into a 30-minute conversation. And they really take their time explaining the position, understanding more about the drivers and where they're currently working, what's not working, what's, maybe some things that they would like to see in their future employer, and see if they can actually even match that. They're not really focused on getting butts in seats, as in layman's terms. They're really focused on getting the right match, and they believe it starts with the recruiters and training them properly, which, Tim, you and I know is something that we have seen very seldomly in our industry. A lot of folks put recruiters on the phones and they're like dial for donuts, if you will.
Right.
But they're really seeing this engagement across the board. So I think it's really optimistic to see that.
Absolutely. And I think that is really, really great. That's a great thing that they're doing. That way it keeps everybody in the loop as to what's going on out there, what the drivers are going through, what the drivers are facing on a day-to-day basis. 615-292-6366. What is keeping you with your company? What is your company doing to keep you and the other drivers employed there and keeping you happy? That's what Jackie wants to know this morning. And you can send your response via email as well at tim@radionemo.com. Jackie McManus is with us. This is Tim Ridley on Sirius XM. Jackie McManus is with us. This is Tim Ridley on Sirius XM Road Dog Trucking. What's keeping you with your company? What is your company doing so well that makes you want to stick around? Let's head to the phone lines, and Chris is with us. Chris, good morning. You're live on the show with Jackie.
Good morning again, Tim. Good morning, Jackie. How you doing?
Doing great, Chris. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing this way, that way, the other way.
My type of guy.
This is a subject near and dear to my heart, actually. My company listens. That's a key right there. They listen to me.
It's okay.
When I come up with some ideas, and they didn't take them all, but they listened, and that's important.
Mm-hmm. You know what? That is such a key element. And I actually just spoke to one of my clients, and their turnover rate is 35%, which is unbelievable, right, in our industry. And what they were saying is the next one thing they do is they listen. It is such a soft core skill, but they listen to the driver. They can't implement everything, but they're curious. And the chief operating officer and the CEO meet with the drivers on a monthly basis and get their feedback. What's going well? What's not going well? What can we, what ideas do you guys have? Can they implement every idea immediately? Probably not, but they take a lot of those pieces and try to work with the drivers to make it a better condition for the drivers. And I mean, it seems like your company is doing it, and that right there is going to keep you with them. Why look for another job if they're listening to you?
Well, absolutely. And I mean, okay, I get paid hourly, I get paid overtime, I get paid to sleep. That helps. But respect is where I'm looking. If they're going to respect me, they're listening to me. If they're listening to me, they respect me. They go hand in hand.
Oh, 1,000%. It's and let me ask you this, Chris. How long have you been with the carrier that you are currently working with?
I'm in my 6th year with them.
That's a beauty. That's beautiful. And that's what those longevity we don't really hear anymore.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of turnover, especially in something like this. I worked in retail management for a lot of years, and I always treated my employees with the utmost respect. I mean, sure, I had to fire a few people, but, I still did it with respect, and I gained a lot from them, and this company is doing the same exact thing.
Mm-hmm. And, retail is another industry, as you know, where they have astronomically high turnover, right?
Yeah.
And that's another industry that's suffering as well. And I think it comes down to that core value of respecting each and every employee. And like you said, not everyone's going to be a great fit for the position. Sometimes hard decisions have to be made. But if your carrier is listening to you and wants to make the job better, I mean, every day is not going to be high in the sky, singing songs every day, right? Kumbaya.
Right.
We all know that.
Exactly.
It's especially in the field that the drivers are in, things happen. If the carriers really got an open door policy, and they truly do, a lot of companies advertise that and really don't have it, but if they truly have an open door policy, that goes such a long way.
Oh, it does. And you're right on the money. Dispatchers and other office personnel should come out on the truck. Whether they get a CDL or not, that's another story. But they should be out on the truck for at least 2 weeks to see what it's like. Experience the things that we experience on a daily basis. And they sit there behind their computers. They can't see exactly what we're seeing.
Exactly. You have to touch it. You have to feel it. You have to be experienced in it fully to absolutely understand what it's like to be in that position, because you're only going to be a better recruiter in talking to new candidates to see if they're actually going to be a good fit instead of forcing people into a position just to hit your numbers.
Well, one of the things that we're looking at doing is my company is looking at setting up at the Iowa 80 Trucker Jamboree next year, and
is that right?
I will be a part of it because, I mean, who better to recruit than an active, happy driver? Oh,
that is money right there. I mean, that's a very smart move on your company's end.
I go back into my sales mode. If I'm happy with something and I like it, and it's something that I am going to cherish and use and all that, I'm going to sell it. And there isn't anything I can't sell.
Yeah, and really, driver referrals and hearing it from a driver really has the highest conversion rate and happiest retention rate with candidates, because you're hearing it from a driver that's actually doing the work. I mean, nothing better than that.
Right, exactly.
Well, all right,
Well, that's
Chris.
my 2 cents worth.
Well, we appreciate your 2 cents worth. I think it's a lot more than 2 cents. What do you think, Jackie?
I think so, too. I think it's a couple dollars right there.
Yeah,
All right.
that's right.
You all have a great week, and we'll talk to you later.
All right.
You too, Chris.
You do the same. All right. I do have an email, Jackie, and he says, first he says, "Hi, Jackie. I can sum it up just like this. Very simple. They treat drivers like they should be treated, a human being. They make you feel part of the family, and I can walk in and talk to anyone from dispatch all the way up to the CEO with no problems without going through any red tape or jumping through hoops. And that's what it takes. Not that we're looking for a pat on the back every time you turn around, but an attaboy every once in a while goes a long way."
That is so true. And Tim, I think we talked about this a couple episodes ago, but there was a new study that was released, and the number one reason why drivers are staying with company, which absolutely was exciting to see, was the number one reason was actually praise versus pay. And
Yes.
to this driver's point that just wrote in, obviously an attaboy every time you do something good. That's not, you can't set your expectations to that. But if you're hearing more good than negative things that you're doing, it's the human mind, right? Like you want to be praised. It's psychology 101. You're going to do a better job for that company across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. A driver will bend over backwards if he or she feels appreciated and gets praise every once in a while. And like he said, you're not looking for a pat on the back every time you turn around, but just an attaboy every once in a while. And I remember this was years ago, Jackie. Mm-hmm. There was a guy, we were loading at the same place, and he was asking me about the company I was contracted to. I was leased to. I was an owner operator, and he says, "How's that company right there?" And I told him, and he says, "I got to get away from this place because," he says, "the only time I hear from someone is when they want to yell at me that I did something wrong or I could have done this or could have done that." He says, "I've never, ever heard from someone to say thank you." And he says, "Yes, I've made mistakes, but I've done a good job a lot of times too, but I've never heard anything about that."
And that's human nature, right? We all can't be performing at 99%, 110% every day. From executives to drivers, the whole scope of personnel in a company, mistakes happen, right? And it's just owning it and having a company that really appreciates you during the really good times, and then having constructive criticism instead of slapping your wrist on how you can do better for next time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I used to, when I was working in the office in management, occasionally I would send out a mass Qualcomm message thanking the drivers. And sometimes on a Friday, I would do it sometimes on a Friday before I would leave for the weekend, leave the office. And we'll just say, "Look, just want to thank you for all you do," or "Thank you for, being a part of this company," or "Thank you for making this company what it is today." And so, and I didn't do it all the time, but I would do it periodically because that makes you feel, good. And sometimes a person may need to hear that at that particular time.
Yep, you never know what someone's going through, and that's always something that recruiters should keep in mind, that office personnel should keep in mind, because you never know what someone's going through at any point in sales, right? And so, if you share a little bit of kindness, I think kindness is something that just it goes tenfold, comes back to you. And a lot of people forget that core quality of just basic human kindness. And when we're seeing that with companies treating their employees like Chris just said, and the caller just said, treating them with a little bit of respect, that's really all that's all that people need. And it goes a long way.
Yeah, it absolutely does. Just this email came in just in time. I just thought about checking the email one more time before we parted the airways. And good thing I did. And he's just commenting on something that we were talking about just a little bit ago about the example I shared with the driver that only heard when he was wrong. And he says, what about when the company was wrong? That they called him and let them know that they were wrong. And he says that's what he likes about his company, because if the company messes up, they admit to it. They don't try to hide it or sugar. He says they don't try to hide it or sugarcoat it or pretend it didn't happen. They own up to it. And likewise, if I do something wrong, they let me know. But at the same time, they let me know that I'm appreciated as well. So again, it goes back to what you said earlier, that goes above money, knowing that you are appreciated.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's something that I'm so happy, like you said earlier in this show, Tim, that companies are really taking seriously to figure out how they can better communicate, how they get better praise, and how they can be more transparent with drivers, just like they are with office personnel. Because, listen, drivers are the people that are making the freight move. And if we don't have drivers, we don't have 76% of what we eat, drink, and wear on the truck. So seeing more of that, not only from companies, but also seeing that from civilians that understand the industry, is really something that is beautiful about Driver Appreciation Week, because we're seeing that across the board.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, the companies, as well as we do, and as well as you, we appreciate drivers every single day of the year. Jackie, we appreciate you every single day of the year as well. We look forward to talking to you next time around, and you have a wonderful week.
You too, Tim. Thank you guys so much. Have a great week.